there's
Gotcha.
like something that they could learn.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks again for this time.
Yeah.
There is I'm very new to the Subto. I've just recently come across your stuff and wondered why I've been beating my head against the wall with everything else in real estate other than creative financing and Subtos.
Yeah, that's literally the meeting I just had with Sam, the previous guy's a licensed realtor, fix and flips in Jersey. And he gave me the strategy he's thinking on this house. And I'm like, bro, you're literally thinking about this entirely wrong. And in 20 minutes, I restructured his whole entire deal. And he's like, holy crap, you just saved me $280,000 on a free phone call.
Wow.
So
yeah.
What do you got going on?
So there is, this realtor had brought me a property that's not listed very well. It was listed at one time and come off. She said he's a great guy. He's a retired veteran, so it's a VA loan.
Okay.
But he's in it for about 190. The property will probably appraise for
when
around
you say he's into it 190, does that mean he owes 190 to a bank, or is that how much he's invested total?
That's his VA loan.
Okay, got it. So he has an existing loan. He has an underlying loan that has not been paid off of $190,000.
Correct.
Okay, so he wants to go to somewhere else in Missouri. He wants to move. He owes 190. This is like a layup.
Okay.
What are you going to do with the property?
I would like to Airbnb it if it would be a good Airbnb right there.
Okay, do you know if it is, or do you need help with that?
I would need a little help with that.
So how do we figure out the value of an Airbnb is on airdna.com. Have you looked there?
I haven't on this particular thing.
So airdna, like DNA is like the lifeblood of a human being, DNA. airdna.com. You plug in the address and it pulls up the value. It says, hey, like I had my Airbnb manager, his name is Noah. So I send him an address because I don't look at stuff, but it's 405 Branch Forest Way, Stockbridge, Georgia, right? So he pulls this up and it says that my average daily rate is $524 at an occupancy of 59%. I would bring in $112,000 a year in revenue. So I would start there. How much can you bring in monthly on this property by going to airdna.com? Then you reverse engineer and you go, okay, now I'm going to call this guy and I'm going to have a conversation with him and say, hey, would you let me just take over your payments? Essentially, this is like the easiest transaction ever.
Right.
Here's the problem, right? So like a lot of guys that are starting out in creative finance, they hear people say, well, Subto is a great way to get free houses, right? Let's talk about this for a second. If he's got a house for 190, you don't know what the payment is. That's a problem.
Right. She said when she had talked with him before, it was somewhere between $600 and $700 a month.
Okay.
And that's old information from when she had it listed with him before. So, I mean, all this needs to be verified again to be rock solid, but that's what she told me.
Okay. So it's pretty simple. He's got a $700 mortgage payment every month. The real estate agent had it listed, so she couldn't sell the property. This is a typical Subto transaction. It doesn't mean he's in foreclosure. It just means, man, an agent couldn't help me out. No hedge fund could help me out. No cash buyer could help me out. Literally, this is a ripe picking for a Subto deal.
Right.
All you have to do, Kyle, which is a problem for a lot of people, is you got to come up with some money to put in the agent's pocket, probably $1,000 for just bringing the opportunity to you. You got to pay the seller probably $5,000 so he can move somewhere else. Okay. And you got to pay for some closing costs. So all in all, you're going to be about $10,000 into this transaction. And most people are going to go, I don't have $10,000.
Okay.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. So here's a couple of things. You could either, if you don't have the $10,000, guess what you could do? You could assign this and wholesale this opportunity to somebody else who does, right?
Yeah. Right.
So you could actually make $10,000 on a deal that an agent couldn't sell, a wholesaler couldn't figure out, a hedge fund wouldn't buy. You could assign that deal to a creative finance buyer for $10,000 because all day long I would buy a deal like this. Other than I don't want to buy anything in Missouri because that's not the state I buy in, right?
Right.
Missouri's dope, but that's just not where I buy.
Right.
But you could find another creative finance investor that would buy this deal from you. You could assign it for $10,000, be off on your merry way. So that's option one. Option two is if you don't have the $10,000, you could then seller finance this to somebody else and sell it to them for $250, $260, and have them bring 20 grand as a down payment on this, pay the 10 grand you need to get into the deal. You take 10 grand of that in your pocket. And now every single month you get a little bit of cash flow, and you're not actually the owner, you're the lender. That's a little bit higher level that people have a hard time understanding. That's option 2. Option 3 is you could do a lease option. You could find a tenant or somebody in town there that would be like, yo, I'll bring 10 grand to the table to do a lease option on this thing. And you could just turn that into a lease option, right? All 3 of those options, somebody else is covering your costs and you are making money, okay? The 4th option, which I actually use the most, is I want to own real estate, because you see what's going on with inflation. You see what's going on with real estate skyrocketing. I don't want anybody else to get those benefits. I want the benefits of ownership, right? Which is, I think, where you're heading.
Right.
And more importantly, I want the passive income. So if you still don't have money and you want that property, which you have the 10 grand, so I'll give you option 5 in a second. But the 4th thing, and I do this even at my level, is I will borrow the $10,000 from a private investor, pay interest only to that private investor. So now I'm making the $700 to the mortgage. I'm paying $100 a month to the private investor, or whatever my arrangement is with them. And now I own the property, no money out of my pocket, and I can turn around and rent that out as an Airbnb. And with my income from my Airbnb, I pay off my lender over time. Okay, so that's option 4. Option 5, I don't want to go raise private capital. I just want to put my own 10 grand into this thing. And it's still a good deal for me because I don't have to qualify for a loan. I don't have to pay agent commissions. I don't have to get appraisals, do inspections. I can just go in there and take over this guy's deed, and I can turn around and get it put on an Airbnb. It's going to bring me in $100 a night, $3,000 a month. And I have a passive income of $1,200, $1,300 a month net in my pocket. And it sounds like option 5 is what you're gearing for, right?
And I'm lean to that. I mean, I'm open to any of it, but yeah, I would like to start acquiring nightly stuff or long-term, even long-term rentals in that area.
Well, there you go. So there's your 5 options on this individual deal. There's literally 100 other transactions that I could structure for this, but every individual buyer and the individual seller. And then you so basically there's 3 typical ingredients in a deal, right? There's a seller and their individual needs, desires, wants, hopes, debts. Then you have the house itself and the issues that are going on with that. And then there's you, the buyer, who has your individual resources or lack of resources or desires, et cetera. And so you mix all that up, and then you just have to structure the deal. So I get a lot of people like, how do I structure a creative finance deal? And I'm like, tell me the 3 pieces of the ingredients. I don't, now you've told me the ingredients. The seller's having a hard time selling the property. The listing expired. Doesn't have a lot of equity. Property is in a desirable area that you could turn around in Airbnb. You could buy it subject to you have some cash. So there you go. Option 5 is how I would go structure it.